When you ask a young kid about their favorite subject in school, often the answer is lunch. It was mine. But for a lot of students in Boston, it's much more than that. Before the city started providing free lunch to all BPS students in 2013, around 3/4 were eligible for free or reduced cost lunch. But in most of the city's public schools, the kitchen is nothing more than a freezer and a warming oven. The result isn't exactly getting the job done.
Some of us don't even eat the whole day because the food's bad.
Did you eat this?
Nope.
So what did you really eat for lunch today? This and a cheese stick is what you had for lunch and nothing else?
Nope.
Just carrots and a cheese stick, that's a problem. One the Shaw Family Foundation, started by Jill Shaw and her husband, Wayfair co-founder Niraj Shaw, set out to solve. The foundation started working with BPS on revamping the lunch program entirely, bringing new kitchen equipment, fresh food, retraining staff, and last January, after a successful pilot.
What's happening here will improve all of our young people's performance, improve their futures. We're expanding this program. We're ready to go with 30 kitchens next year.
And tomorrow, Mayor Marty Walsh is expected to announce the program will expand to another 32 schools. A new documentary called Eat Up followed the process from start to now. Ahead of the film's release, Shaw Foundation CEO and co-founder Jill Shaw. It's great to meet you, Jill.
Thank you.
And the film's director, Fiona Turner, joined me. Great to meet you, too, Fiona. So can we start at the beginning? Why does it matter that a kid has a healthy lunch? Actually, let's do the reverse.
Yeah.
What's the impact of having an unhealthy lunch or no lunch at all for a kid in the school?
First of all, you're hungry. I think the hunger drives discipline issues. I think it makes you much less ready to learn in your seat. I think it causes frustration. It causes, later you leave school, you end up buying a bag of Doritos and eating that. It's not the most healthful thing
but it's
to put your body.
not just about your stomach. It's about your ability to learn.
Yeah.
And one of the stats early in your film that blew me away, almost all the kids in Boston public schools get 3/4 of their calories from what they eat or don't eat while they're in their school.
Yeah, that's exactly right, because through, Boston Food and Nutrition Services serves 3 meals a day, breakfast, lunch, and an after-school snack. It's available to all kids in the Boston public school system.
So I know you guys named this thing Eat Up, but after having watched the film, I would have called it Private Sector Entrepreneur Butts Up Against School Bureaucracy. Is that a fair title for this thing?
Yeah, but it's too long.
Okay, so it's not quite as catchy. So your history, I know about you, Fiona. I mean, you've done war coverage, you've done covered all tons of foreign things. How did you end up in this, and what's the interest for you?
Well, I think I was exceptionally lucky, actually. I'm interested in food, and I'm a mom, and I heard about the initiative to try and change the food up in the Boston system, and I thought if I can get access into these schools, then that would be a really interesting story to figure out exactly how that change is made.
Can you describe what these kids were eating that they were tossing into the garbage for the most part before you guys got involved?
Yeah, I mean, so imagine a black box covered with film that you could kind of see colors through. What they were eating was, some compilation of a protein, a starch. I couldn't call it a name. It was a protein, a starch, a vegetable sprinkled with some stuff. Often, I mean, I don't know how many kids you hang out with, they don't like the stuff sprinkled on top. And so lots of kids would take this. It would be maybe burnt, maybe not warm enough. And they'd spork it open. We gave them sporks. And so if you think about it functionally, a child walks through the line, they take this package, they spork it open, they look at it, and, kind of the
I remember
rest.
those days,
you
too.
remember those days, yeah.
But in your guiding principles, it's fair to say, is we don't need vendors. We essentially, you can be cooking these things ultimately yourself. That has been the guiding principle of this whole thing, right?
Yeah, I mean, this is a $25 billion industry that takes advantage of the poorest
school lunches
kids in America.
One of my favorite moments in the film, I love the lunch ladies, by the way, and I mean that in a loving way because my kids experience them too. But Ken Oranger, who people know, James Beard Award winner, Toro, Uni, that sort of thing. Here he is talking to cafeteria workers about tofu.
Have any of you guys eaten tofu here? It's going to be a challenge to not only get kids to be excited about it, but it's going to be a challenge to figure out how we're going to cook it to get kids excited about it.
And how'd they react to it? How did the cafeteria workers, these women, many of whom have been doing this forever, how'd they react to it? tofu from Ken Oringer.
They were game, I have to say. They were really up for it, and they dove in there. They were a little reticent about like trying it, and they weren't terribly enamored initially, but they were game.
Once they felt part of it, particularly,
Yes.
which I know you really worked hard to get to that point where they felt that they were part of the process. So where are we now? I know the revolution is underway. I don't mean Revolution Foods or whatever the contractor was, but so where do we stand now?
So 30 schools were rolled out this year. So 30 schools now serve all whole real food in My Way cafes. The mayor's going to make an announcement tomorrow, and so there'll be many more next year. And the goal is to do all 125 schools so that all kids are eating this way in the city of Boston.
You know, we've talked a lot on the radio, on my radio show, about how the federal government under Donald Trump has retreated on food standards in school that were elevated by the Obamas. But that just sets a floor. Individual cities and towns can...
That's right.
But are we losing money on this in Boston, or how are they doing in terms of federal reimbursement?
No, we're not. So actually, every time we serve a meal, it's 40 cents less than the alternative, and it is below the subsidy by about 20 cents, which
because
means
there's less waste? Is that what it is? Because the kids actually like it? What is it?
Because we don't pay for packaging, processing, preservatives, or profit.
Is this replicable? I mean, it seems to me the most important, not only replicable within Boston schools, but the hope is, I assume this is your hope, is that this could extend beyond the borders of Boston down the road, yes?
Absolutely. It's the goal of the foundation that everything that we help to fund, there's a playbook at the end of it that shows how to do it in your city.
And you're funding half of this, right? The foundation is funding half of the cost of this thing?
Now we fund a number of positions in BPS, as well as we have staff who work full-time on the initiative. We provide funding for all of the equipment, and we split the first 30 with the city.
So you're not just a filmmaker, you have kids, you told me. So what's your takeaway from the film that you made?
I think that this film needs to be seen across other districts. You know, there are 16 states that don't have mandates for the programming within the National School Lunch Program. And there are a lot of kids out of that. There are 20 million kids who rely on school lunch, free school lunch. And that actually is discounting a lot of others who aren't counted into that because they're not part of the program.
I love the film. I love what you're doing. Congratulations to both of you. Fiona, thanks so much for your time. Good to meet you. Jill, congratulations.
Thank you, Jim.
Keep doing it. Really appreciate it. You can catch the film this Sunday afternoon at the Independent Film Festival Boston at the Somerville Theater. For more information, head to eatupfilm.com.